You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tusaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster Joe Benazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from SIBO. The Option Block is brought to you by SIBO. SIBO's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.sibo.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of CBOE Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively CBOE. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the CBOE products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody, that music means we are back. It is time once again to rock out with your bi-weekly source for all things options related. Yep, it is time for the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Radio Network, your home now for nigh on 2 decades worth of options podcast goodness. And if you want a little extra sprinkled on top, like, let's say, I don't know, an awesome pro Q&A with some guy called Uncle Mike earlier this week, threw in a little live trading after that as well, just for fun, just getting up to a whole mess of trouble. The optionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn about all that fun as we learn who's joining us on the old Thursday episode. First, since I just invoked him, let's go out to the hinterlands of Chi-Town, where we are joined once again by the Uncleist of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tusaw. Mr. Uncle Mike, welcome back for our regularly scheduled Thursday meltdown, sir.
Pretty much, but we are still positive on the week, and if you liked the market the other day, you love it today.
What if you really hated it the other day? Do I hate it even less now or more?
I don't deal with that emotion, so I wouldn't know.
Yes, that's true. That emotion is alien to you. Then a man who was born to hate, molded by it, shaped by it, none other than the Flowmaster himself, Mr. Henry Schwartz from SIBO East. Mr. Flowmaster, welcome back to your own duly appointed Thursday sell-off. Let me just say this. Yesterday on I think it might have been our Hot Options report, I did publicly mull over. I said, the Flowmaster's coming on tomorrow. I probably should buy some
Yeah. Buy some puts, buy some vol.
And once again, it would have been the trade of the week out there, listeners. Wild stuff. Let's get to it. Time for a little bit of the old trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block, the portion of the show where we tell you what the heck is trading. And surprise, surprise, this pattern, this playbook that we've been joking about now pretty much since the onset of this conflict a month ago is playing out yet again this week. So what did we see yet again this week? Some sort of dire news going on over the weekend. In this case, it was 48 hours to open the trade, or we blow you into the last century. That didn't really go over very well. So on Monday, we saw the regularly scheduled conciliatory gesture out of DC. The markets ate it up with the spoon. We rallied. Vol came back to earth, which again makes it challenging for that weekend vol trade. You do kind of have to hold it through at least the early session of Monday, it seems like now, because if you try to get rid of it on the open on Monday, you're taking a big hit on the UVIX side of it, at least. So yeah, it's been fascinating to watch this playbook play out. Then we got a little bit of green going on the screen earlier this week. Then, of course, like clockwork, coming into the end of Wednesday, and of course, the Flowmaster's regularly scheduled blood red Thursday appearance. We are back, and the markets are suitably blood red. S&P now off 1.1%. The Dow off 0.7%. Nasdaq off 1.5%. And VIX cash vacillating right around the 27.5 level as we kicked off the show, up 1.5 points from where we were on Monday. VVIX starting to juice up a little bit as well, up to about a 122. That puts it up 1 point from where it was on the Monday show. Now, I will say this, it is the regularly scheduled bloodletting, but we did see on TWIFO last week, right after the Flowmaster's appearance. So the Flowmaster shows up, markets get annihilated, and then he leaves. Markets actually turn green towards the end of the session last Thursday. So it was kind of a wild day. We'll see if we can have a repeat of that. Maybe, who knows, a little bit later on TWIFO. Before we get there, let's go out to the Flowmaster, because he is single-handedly responsible for killing these markets once again. Mr. Flowmaster, sir, what do you have to say for yourself, your weekly Thursday bloodletting, sir?
Well, I'll tell you, now I'm starting to get a little worried about my impact on the market. So I'm asking our internal AI platform when the last time we had a positive Thursday, and there have been a few. However, you do have to go back to February to find one. And it looks to me like 1, 2, 3. Looks like it's about I think I have about a 65% hit ratio to the downside. But you know what? We got active markets. I was actually just earlier this week at an equity derivatives conference in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Came back this morning, but there was plenty of discussion about how the international asset managers are using derivatives. Really, a lot of nice deep dives into volatility, skew, kind of some of the global macro picture. So, but yeah, we're looking at kind of a ugly market. I mean, that's really what the conversation has been lately. It's that, you know, we've had such incredible equity returns, and even into January, you know, everybody was like, oh, here we go again. But things really have turned, and even before Iran, definitely, and you know, oil prices, I think, is kind of the latest you know, catalyst to really spook people. But there was actually some nice presentations at this conference, just kind of about how abnormal the equity returns that we've seen for the last 10 years are, and kind of putting it in context, going all the way back to World War II. You know, there have been times where you get, you know, 10, 15 years of you know, almost double-digit annual returns for owning stocks, and you know, sometimes it ends fine and continues, and sometimes it kind of ends badly. So that really, I think right now, that is the debate. You know, we're looking at you know, year to date, you know, S&P's down almost 5%. You know, so remember in January, we're up about 2%. Russell is still hanging on to a little bit of a year to date gain. So that outperformance is still pretty significant in the small caps. But man, the these high flyers, the super caps, the Mag 10 names, basically, are some of them are really just getting hurt. You could probably argue that the valuations were certainly stretched, but like our Mag 10 index, which is the Mag 7 plus AMD, Broadcom, and Palantir, is down. It's down about 3% today, and it's about down 11% year to date. So that just kind of shows you, and that's an equal weighted index. So if you if you had all your money in Nvidia or Tesla or something, you might be feeling it even worse. But that said, there was also a great presentation by some professionals from Citadel Securities talking about kind of their footprint in the business, and really they actually focused on the retail activity, which is really kind of what I also think is kind of amazing. And they see it from a different perspective because they're interacting with basically they stated they're interacting with about a third of the retail flow, and the retail flow that and I've said the same thing. You can see it in the data, makes up about half the market. So today we're running about kind of a slightly below average volume, around 62 million contracts, but March month is looking at average almost 67 million. So things are off to a great start. I'm finishing up my state of the industry, which I'll be using at RMC, which is in 2 weeks, and OIC, which is in about 4 weeks. So lots going on.
Yeah. Oh, I see. I have to start planning it. So you landed from Brazil this morning. Do you have any idea what time zone you're in or what day it is, sir?
The flight is it's a 9-hour flight, but the time zone is only an hour different from New York. So
so that wasn't too
jet
bad.
lag's not the problem. And let me tell you, the steak and the coffee are amazing down there.
Steak definitely good. And a whole conference about EWZ and Petrobras. I mean, what more can you ask for down there in all things Brazil? Was there a lot of penetration about VIX down there? Were they hyped up to all things vol down there in Brazil, sir?
They were. I mean, it was, volatility is a big focus. They don't have a traded volatility product that's local. I believe there is a VIX on the Bovespa index itself, but no, they really focus on U.S. and European vol products, because that's where liquidity is. I asked actually at a dinner what they thought the best thing about the U.S. markets was, and the worst. The best thing they said was liquidity. They just said liquidity is outstanding compared to what they're used to. They said the worst thing about U.S. Equity and option markets were the bots. They were not fans of kind of the kind of extreme automation that we see, which occasionally makes it kind of funky activity.
Funky activity indeed. Now we turn to the mecca of all things funky, aka St. Charles. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, yet another day where you're going to be busy. Your buy-in finger going to be worn out by the end. You must have been tired last week because you drove the market green after I stopped talking to you. What's catching your eye out there today, sir?
Funky like a monkey, baby. To honor the American dream, Dusty Rhodes, for when you called me funky. So anyway, with that, we're still positive on the week. So that's one good thing about today. We can say that. So that is a positive that we can take away. It's headline risk. That's what's going on. That's no secret. One thing that I am seeing today that really kind of caught my eye, silver. It continues to not want to leave my life, if you will. Silver actually hit a year-to-date low today. Looking at SLV, it's at 60.74. Was the low of the day today, so it's off that right now. It's at 61.47 right now as I look at this. But silver might go into the 50s, and it's kind of unusual, or it just feels unusual at least, in that when we are in a global uncertainty, we do have oil going up, and that makes sense. Natural gas is higher, that makes sense. But the silver and gold are not going higher. And so that's something that's rather unique about where we are at right now. Gold is not quite on its year-to-date lows, but it's getting close. It opened the year. I'm showing the year-to-date low, or the low for the year for gold. Looking at GLD at 396.25. It's at 403 today. So it's still holding on to the 400 level in the GLD world, but it's not by much. So as we're looking at this, the fact that we have metals going down, I think is just kind of an interesting thing to take a look at as we are watching this. The other talk that's out there right now, of course, bonds. I believe last time I looked at the Fed futures, the Fed funds futures, it looks like we're 50-50 in terms of there being don't quote me on that, but it looks like there is still a chance that we might actually raise interest rates this year. I don't think the president would want to do such a thing, but he doesn't necessarily get his way in that regard. And historically, there have been interest rate raises during wars. So it wouldn't surprise me. Although the other thing that would not surprise me is it would not keep the Fed on the president's Christmas card list if something like that were to happen. So bonds are continuing to be relatively weak, and they're not down a ton this year by any means, but we are not getting a flight to safety with this sell-off. We're getting a flight to oil, if you will, with everything. So that's another thing that's catching my eye. A couple individual names that are kind of taking it on the chin today. We have Meta, that's down $41 on the day, so that's down 7%. We have that. Advanced Micro Devices down 6% on the day. And these aren't by any means just major stocks, or in terms of when you compare them to like a Nvidia or an Apple, but it's definitely something to take note of. Google is down 2.5% on the day. And with all that, Apple is higher. Apple is actually up 1% on the day, up $2.55. So we do have that. And just out of spite, I will say it, Bitcoin is down on the day. And that's what I'm seeing.
You're a very spiteful man, sir. Interesting stuff out there. Let's see what we can find amidst all this spite. It is shaping up like a spiteful day out here in the markets with all this blood red on the screen. Let's see what we can find out here in a little bit of the old VIX land to kick things off. Why don't we, listeners? Is VIX looking spicy on a spite-filled blood red day? The answer is yeah. Over 500,000 contracts, 520,000 contracts to be precise. The ADV almost 1.2 million, so it's got to get out of bed really the second half of the session if it really wants to hit that ADV. But right now, looking good. We need one or two really big size 1x2s going up, and that'll get us over that threshold. By the way, what is the hot option out there in VIX land right now? You might be wondering. How about a little bit of downside? How about a little bit of the April 20 puts, listeners? Lighting it up today, 53,000 times. For prices right around 44 cents. You know the drill at this point, listeners. You want to buy those bad boys or do you want to sell them? And right now, 100% of the listeners are saying a screaming sold to you. They want nothing to do with 20 puts. Man, gone are the days when everyone and their mother was loading up on the 15 puts. Now you're selling the hell out of the 20 puts. A new vol regime, question mark? I don't know. Interesting stuff out there. Worth noting, there is size OI on this strike, so somebody could be getting the heck out of Dodge. But either way, you folks don't want to touch these puts. Let's do a quick top five. Number 2, 24,000 of the April 30s. Number 3, 22,000 of the April 27s. Number 4, 22K as well of the April 25s. And number 5, also 22K. If you want a little bit more duration for your downside, listeners, June 19 puts for $1.14. Interesting, getting out there into what are usually the dog days of summer. You like a little bit of downside. Do you like going out that far in VIX, or do you think that's a bit of a fool's errand? I'm curious. Maybe we'll do a flash poll about that one as well. But let's keep rolling out to SPY land. Is SPY busy? The answer is yes. Unlike VIX, well over halfway to its ADV right now. 7.1 million contracts. The ADV, 11.6 million. The S, 3.05 million. The ADV, 5.1 million contracts. So the S also north of halfway to its ADV. And then small caps, the Flowmaster's beloved small caps, lighting it up today to the tune of 1.3 million contracts on the tape. They're selling off about 1.5% out there in small caps land. So small caps, as we were just talking about, year to date had turned ever so briefly green. Even yesterday, I think they were up almost 0.75%, half to 0.75%, somewhere in that ballpark. Giving all that back now, turning back red on the year, off about 0.25%. Of course, as the Flowmaster points out, still a heck of a lot better than when you look at, let's say, SPY year to date, which is off over 5% now. But still, interesting stuff out there in the world of small caps. And let's do the Qs, because why not? 4.15 million contracts on the tape in Qs land. The ADV is about 6. Certainly seems like we could hit that in the second half of the session unless the Qs really kind of peter out. But who knows? If we get another one of those crazy whipsaw days, we could be at those ADVs in a few hours out there. So let's turn our gaze now to single names, listeners. See what's lighting up the tape. You know, sometimes we get this Thursday sell-off. Everyone's fixated on macro news, on headline risk. No one's really got time for the single names. Is that the case today? The answer is no. Today we're looking decently spicy this time of the show. 359,000 contracts, so fully 9,000 beyond our threshold for respectability at this time of the show, listeners. Gets you to our old pal, the Amazonians, trading a little bit north of 209 right now, off 260 or 1.25%. So not a great day for the Amazonians. Let's go to number 9, Uncle Mike's favorite holding. In fact, as I recall from our pro Q&A on Tuesday, I think his response to a question about his Palantir holdings was, ooh, I didn't realize I had so much, something along those lines. I'm sure I'm paraphrasing. He will come on and correct me later on, I'm sure. But it was something along those lines where even he was surprised at how much Palantir he had when he put it all together. 149.20, off 5 3/4 or 3 3/4%. So Palantir back below the 150 strike. By the way, I see someone else, Uncle Mike, is running with our favorite poll question. I should say really your favorite poll question, the thing that kicked off all your Palantir love. A few years ago when Nvidia and Palantir were around the same level and we did that long-term poll, looks like someone, I think it's Market Watch, might be doing that same question right now. Who's the better long-term buy, Nvidia or Palantir? So that question persists. Number 9, Palantir, 375 on the tape. Number 8, you know, Uncle Mike likes to talk his smack about crypto, but Mara don't care about no crypto. Up 60 cents today, trading $8.84, or nearly 7%. Maybe I can get the upside leg of my strangle off now. I'll have to go look and see. We were trying to get that off on Tuesday. I got a little bit optimistic with my fill. Didn't get filled. Stock sold off. I did sell the put leg, obviously, of the strangle. Now working to leg into the call leg. So maybe we'll get that off today. Mara, number 8, 378,000 contracts on the tape. They have a Bitcoin-based debt reduction strategy. Oh, it's selling its Bitcoin amid its further pivot towards AI. So there we go. Hence its rally out there today. Number 8, Mara. Number 7, Mr. Softy, man. If you sold this thing going into earnings, you're feeling good right now because it continues to be blood red. Off another $3 to 368.12 is where it's trading right now. Again, it wasn't that long ago. It was last earnings. People were loading up on the 500 calls. Just a wild time in Microsoft. Number 7, 422 on the tape for Mr. Softy. If you want another insane M name, how about Micron? I mean, this name shot out of a cannon to start the year. And then I think I mentioned this actually on Thor for the day of Micron earnings. I said this was looking eerily familiar. It was trading around the 460 level, pretty close to where Microsoft was. We saw people also going into that earnings loading up on the 500s, paying a pretty penny for the privilege as well. And I remember commenting on that show, this is eerily reminiscent of what we just saw in Microsoft. Let's hope it works out better for those folks. And the answer is no. Straight down, listeners, post earnings. This has been just a nigh on apocalyptic. The good news is if you've been rocking Micron this year, you still got some gains. You're still up 42 handles or 13.5%. So you're still outpacing clearly the market and a lot of other names, but you have sold off pretty much 100 handles now from that earnings announcement. So if you look at this chart, it is parabolic over the last month, straight up and then right back down. So absolutely wild stuff. Number 6, Micron. I don't think we've seen the last of the vol in Micron out there. these days, listeners. Number 5, let's go out to AMDA 205.5, off 14 3/4 or 6.7%. So, man, they are coming for AMDA today. As we keep climbing, let's go to another A-Tech name. Why not? Let's keep the trend alive. It's the Fruit Company. Fruit Company says, sell off. What sell off? We don't care about your stinking sell off. Trading 255 right now, up 2 1/3 or almost 1% on the day. So Apple just absolutely bucking the trend out there. More buyers than sellers out there. And looks like some analysts upgrading it or reiterating their upgrade. You got to love reiterating a neutral rating, but the stock rallies. Either way, more buyers than sellers for the Fruit Company. 600,000 contracts exactly on the tape for the Fruit Company. Number 3, Uncle Mike was just talking about this. Not a good week for Meta. 551 off $44 or 7.8%. Lost a big case earlier in the week. Lost another one out there, I do believe, today. So this does seem like a mounting tide of civil litigation they're going to have to contend with. The class actions, the lawyers are just licking their chops over this one. So obviously those concerns weighing on the stock. They tried that old trick. They tried the layoff trick. Not enough to stem the bleeding out here. Worked last time when they sold off to $100. It came out, remember, they announced aggressive layoffs, and man, stock turned right around. Here we are, 550, but not working this week. For number 3, Meta, 1.15 million contracts. Number 2, what is it? Yeah, it's Tesla giving back all its gains from yesterday and then some. 376 3/4, off 9 1/4 or nearly 2.5%. Good for number 2, 1.26. I have a feeling it's not going to be the pars lighting it up out there today, but who knows? Prove me wrong. Check it out on the Hot Options report later today. And then the big dog out there today looking a little smaller, the other half of Uncle Mike's perennial Palantir versus Nvidia question. It's Nvidia, 173.5, off 5 1/4 or nearly 3%. Good for 1.5 million contracts on the tape out there right now. Oh, they face a lawsuit over $1 billion in undisclosed crypto mining revenue. Remember those days? Remember when Nvidia was riding the crypto wave? That was wave 2 or wave 3 of what has become Nvidia. It was mobile first about a decade ago, crypto about 5+ years ago, and that one kind of petered out. And then, of course, lo and behold, AI comes along and is the white knight, I should say, for all things Nvidia out there. Scoops them up, carries them aloft on lofty expectations. But not today. Nvidia selling off. In terms of action out there this week, like we said, we had some earnings still on the docket this week. We had Beyond Meat yesterday after the bell. That's a segment that launched with a lot of hype. Seems like it's kind of cooled off, I think, to put it mildly, that and Impossible and all the other meat substitutes out there. Today we have everyone's beloved BitGo after the bell today, as well as Lovesac, just a weird name for a furniture company, Lovesac, before the bell today. Also had Lucid before the bell today out there, listeners. And luckily for you, because we like you folks, we've got hot off the presses earnings move results, and earnings season reports. And you know what? I mock Lovesac at my peril. The market says pshaw to you, rallying at $2 exactly, or nearly 18%, trading 13 1/4. So apparently the market's loving some Lovesac. Just an absolutely ridiculous name, but apparently the folks like the furniture. It went into their announcement at $11.29. It's now up over $2, $2.06. They were pricing in 10.5%, and they are blowing the doors off that. They were actually $14.15 earlier this morning when we ran this report, so they were up 25% at one point, giving some of that back. So, man, any of you folks out there loading up on Lovesac, there is a store not that far from the studio. I'm gonna have to go check out what all the kids are loving about this patented modular furniture system called Sactionals. They really love the Sac branding. Either way, Lovesac, man, who knew? Who needs AI? All you need, listeners, is love and apparently some Lovesac's out there. We've also got popping off today everyone's favorite Wi-Fi, aka White Fiber Inc. I don't think we've ever discussed this one on the network before ever. They're not having a great day. They're off nearly $2 or about 12%, trading $12.91 They went into their announcement 14.69. They're pricing in 14.8%, so they're still underperforming, even with this pretty aggressive move to the downside. In terms of names that are popping off soon that you folks actually might like to trade, we got Nike coming up next week on the 31st. And then we've also got Dave & Buster's. They're getting smoked today. They're $11 off a buck, or nearly 9% today. So apparently not a good day to be Dave & Buster's. Nike, when we ran this report this morning, they were at $53. They were pricing in $4.13. In the past, they've moved $4.30. So not pricing in a heck of a lot extra, but Dave & Buster's, like we said, they were $12.11 this morning when we ran this report. They've already given up over $1. They're pricing in $1.58. In the past, they've moved $1.25. They've moved almost $1.25 already today. So I'm not sure what's going on out there in Dave & Buster's today, other than more sellers than buyers. But wow, they're not waiting for earnings in Dave & Buster's. They're coming to play. So apparently the Paris trade today was sell the hell out of Dave & Buster's and buy the heck out of Lovesac. And you're looking pretty good out there, listeners. Is the season looking good? The answer is yes. 126% is where we are hanging out right now. Our lone red week on the season is week 5 with 97%, so almost 100%. Every other week has been well north of 100%, and that gives us our average of 126. Our long-term average is back to about par. It's back to about even at 102%. Remember, when things were really wild, it got up to somewhere around 119%, which is around the highest I've ever seen it. Back to 102%. Remember, in the dark days of the pandemic, nobody cared about earnings vol, and it fell off to 70-odd to 82%, somewhere in that ballpark. So hanging out right around the par level right now. You can find all that data for yourselves. Because we like you, we don't charge you a cent. TheOptionsInsider.com to learn more as we learn what the Flowmaster has in store for us. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by TheOptionsInsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, time to get weird. Time to get wild. Time for a little bit of the old option block. And you know what, Mr. Flowmaster, before I even get into what you want to talk about this week, we have to go back to what you were talking about last week. Our chat is all abuzz about it as well. As you recall, last week, you were talking up a little bit of BF.B or BF.B, whatever you want to call it. This was the Brown-Forman Class B. This was a liquor company that none of us on the network had ever really talked about or traded. It was a newcomer on the network. And somebody was mysteriously loading up on a whole bunch of upside. That was about exactly $4 out of the money. With the stock around 23.5, they were buying April 27.5s like they were going out of style for prices up to 50 cents, between 25 and 50 cents. Lo and behold, Mr. Flowmaster, today as you join us, Brown-Forman Class B shooting up 15.25%, trading $27.08, hit a high of $28.50. So blowing through that strike on, guess what, Mr. Flowmaster? A potential takeover or merger deal with another big liquor manufacturer out there. So guess what, Mr. Flowmaster? Somebody knew something. Well, are you surprised?
That's kind of interesting, isn't it? I didn't trade this one, but it does look like we were talking about the 50-cent call buyers, right, in the April 25s, and right now they're trading $2.50. So that's not a bad 500% return. Maybe they just got lucky. I never jump all the way to the conclusion that there's something going on, but look, in this case, does look a little bit suspicious. Interesting that, and that news came out in the middle of the day, right? Today. So
just came out right before the show, I think.
Yeah, I see it hitting, basically spiking around 12:15. New York time. So interesting one for sure. I mean, paying attention to the order flow, and I was just looking to see if those were adjusted at all over the last week, and it does not look like it. It looks like they put them on and didn't touch them. So today you'll see some heavy volume because they might be getting out or spreading it off a little bit. Looks like there's some May 27 calls trading, so 27.5. So yeah, interesting one. I mean, on a thin name, you pay attention to the option flow because there was actually one of the comments from EQD, actually from somebody who trades debt, because we were talking about the HYG ETF, and SIBO actually has some high yield bond index futures, and his comment was that debt traders, because it's a less liquid market, they really need a strong amount of conviction to make a trade. I thought that was actually an interesting comment. It also kind of made me think that because the options markets have become so liquid, that there's the cost of getting in and out of a trade is not very significant in most cases, at least. And so the flip side works for options. Maybe kind of what used to be a little bit stronger of a signal from the options flow that somebody had really done their homework has changed now that things are a little bit more liquid. But
yeah, that one resonated to me. I did talk about it again the next day on our Friday options. I was pretty close to pulling the trigger on those. I forgot what happened. I think the show just ended up running out of time, and I didn't have a chance to buy them for the close out there. But that was one stood out to me too. You're right, for all the reasons we described. It is a very thin name. We don't see this kind of paper very often. It seemed to have a lot of conviction. We were looking at ways maybe to do verticals. I think you were talking about verticals on the show last week as well. But either way, if you played this one, listeners, you got ahead of all the news out there today. Amazing how that works out there, listeners. Let's see if things are working today. Let's see if Flowmaster can go 2 for 2. Let's go out to another newcomer on the network. This is Hello Group Inc., ticker symbol Momo, M-O-M-O, trading $5.86, off about a dime today. On the year, they're off 55 cents or about 9%. They sold off to about 5.12 last April and all the madness. And then in July, they rallied to about 9.25. So they did a lot of living. They did $4 worth of living from April to July of last year. Then they've spent pretty much every subsequent session since last mid-July selling off back down to where we are right now being down for the year as a result. So Momo having a rough run. What is it? This is a Chinese technology company. They run the mobile social networking and entertainment platforms known as Momo and Tauntaun, little Star Wars reference there. But Momo and Tauntaun apps. Either way, Mr. Flowmaster, an interesting one. What did you spot in your beloved Momo today, sir?
Yeah, so this one it's a name I've never traded before, and but it did remind me. I know we've pulled up flow sometimes on some kind of funky Africa-based e-commerce company. I forget which ticker it was, but this is another kind of obscure one. And as you said, it's kind of a whippy stock, and it's a little bit beaten up. What stood out to me today is the fact that you've got call volume about 8 times normal with just 1,400 contracts, but this thing barely doesn't even trade 400 contracts a day total on average. So with the stock around 585-ish, you've got a big call buyer. You've got a buyer who paid 24 cents for almost 1,500 of the May 6 strike calls. Those are opening. Not a huge trade, but again, it doesn't trade that much. It only averages 800,000 shares of stock a day. So the notional on this trade is 150,000 shares, is solid 20% or so of the average daily stock volume as well. So I actually did go ahead and buy a little bit of the stock because it's under $6. I think I'd probably rather buy the stock than the options, and then maybe use the options if the stock starts to really move around. And volatility hasn't done a ton. It's not a super high vol name. It only trades around 32% vol, but it's just a standout. It's very unusual. The largest open interest out there is the April 7 calls. So those expire 2 weeks from Friday. So possible that the same holder wants to kind of put on a new position, but I don't know. This one's kind of worth watching. I don't think it has earnings anytime soon that I know of. But I mean, also it's got a good ticker, Momo, and also it's also kind of slightly hard to borrow. So, it's always I've said this before. When every Thursday we sell off, sometimes it's hard to find the bullish signals. But in this Momo, the cost to short it has gone from under 1% to 2.5% in the last week, which is also kind of a sign that it could be getting hard to short, and sometimes when a name gets really, really tight, you can kind of get some pretty violent upside action. So possible.
Speaking of violent upside action, let's see what our next name has in store for us. This is another good name, listeners. This is BTDR Technologies Group, ticker symbol BTDR, BTDR, trading 868, up about 8 cents today. On the year, they're off $1.50 or about 14.5%. They sold off to, looks like, about 684 back in the madness of last April. Rallied all the way up to about 27, almost $28 in October. So man, they had quite the run from 6 to nearly 30. You're almost sitting on a 5x, and they fell right back down almost as aggressively. On November 18th, they were $10 again. So wild stuff. This is another crypto mining company. This one out of Singapore, listeners. The name sounds familiar. We have talked about it before. It was actually the Flowmaster who talked about it last. It was back on November 13th, listeners, when the stock was, so right around that hot time, right after it came off that big peak in October, the stock was $11.07. And the Flowmaster was talking about the Dees 12 halves. Somebody was lighting it up over 2,000 times for $1. So that's a lot to shell out for a 12 half call on an $11 stock with only a month to go. I don't see where the earnings were then, but interesting stuff. Plus, there was a big roll of a Nove 14th call spread to now the Nove regular. So a lot of bullish flow out there in BTDR. And I'll have to go look and see exactly where it closed in December expiration, listeners. But I'm going to guess that flow did not pay off. But while I look for that, Mr. Flowmaster, sir, what did you spot out there in BTDR today?
Yeah, so as you said, this is another beaten up name, and the crypto segment, it's really interesting, right? We've had a pretty solid sell off, and the sentiment has definitely shifted. In fact, my team, Wei Liao, who was on Bloomberg last week in Hong Kong, was talking about it's the conversation is much more about recession, stagflation, coming, I guess, really from this kind of the energy prices, but what's interesting is like we've seen a sell-off of kind of all risk assets, right? Including some of the things that might be a hedge for some sort of calamity like gold and like Bitcoin, right? So although Bitcoin has kind of bounced a bit, but if BTDR is in that ecosystem, then it's not a surprise that it's pretty beaten up. But there's a couple big trades and just kind of a very lopsided general order flow. We saw a sweep of almost 8,700 of the 41 calls that expire on Friday. Just this morning around 10:07 when the stock was 39.53. So they paid 27 cents. It opens a new position. That's going to take the stock to have to get to 41.30 for them to break even. And then we also have some action in the April 10th, slightly longer dated at 42 calls. So, and it's bid up the volatility a little bit. It's just kind of directionally bullish. Maybe somebody's kind of picking their spot or drawing a little line in the sand in terms of thinking that that it'll kind of hold above or get back above 40. Oh, sorry, I'm pulling in the strikes for something for IBIT because I was actually looking at what Bitcoin itself was doing. Sorry, these are the 10 strike calls with stock at 915, as you said. So, but it's 10,000 of them. So total on the day, the May 10 calls, as you said, trading like well over $1, which is pretty chunky, 10% of the stock price itself. So again, just a very we're looking at 22,000 calls on the tape versus 1,500 puts. Volatility higher. It hasn't done much to the skew in terms of really kinking it to the upside. But this one also, it's kind of worth looking at. I don't think I would go long it just because I feel like it's probably tied pretty. It's gonna trade with Bitcoin, and I already have a little bit of crypto exposure that I don't really feel like adding to. But an interesting one, and it's certainly a kind of a bullish sign in generally a bearish tape.
Speaking of bearish, I just looked at where BTDR went out on December expiration. Spoiler alerts. No bueno, listeners. It closed at 11:01 on expiration. So by my math, it is below the 12.5 strike that they paid a juicy $1. I guess the flip side of this is if you want some juicy covered calls, maybe BTDR is your huckleberry. They paid $1 for these back in November of last year for the 12 halves. I mean, that's ridiculously juicy. You're talking about $1.20. I mean, you're going out to May, you're getting a little bit more duration now, at least. Not much more. I mean, these are juicy. So if you want a little bit of covered call action, maybe BTDR is your huckleberry, listeners. But they bought 2,153 of the D's 12 halves for a whopping $1. The stock closed at 11:01, and guess what? Surprise, surprise. 12 halves were all pretty much still open, so they dropped over 200 grand, about 215,000 on this roll of the dice. You think this one's any better, listeners? Would you buy these? I mean, that's a good thing the Viceroy isn't here. He would be, I think, offended, to say the least, someone shelling out over 10% of the value of the stock for a little bit of upside. I'll have to see when earnings is for BTDR. Maybe that gives you a little bit, because there wasn't even any earnings in this trade. It was just straight up heck of a lot of juice out here in BTDR. Maybe that's my new target for some coverage strangles, listeners. What do you think? Good old BTDR. But now it's time, listeners, to see what you folks have on the brain, a little bit of the old mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, everybody, let's get down to business on the old mail block. Let's check in with our April 20 puts for 44 cents. And you know what? Now our audience can't make up their minds. Now you're pretty much evenly split, right around 50-50 each for buy them and sold to you. I guess that's what makes a market. 44 cents. Would you draw that line in the sand in VIX, listeners? Or would you say buy them? Because I think Ball's coming crashing back to earth. They're going to open the Straits of Hormuz, whatever it takes to get us below the 20 handle. So our audience fighting fast and furious on that one. Also battling fast and furious on our actual question of the week. We asked you folks back on Monday, very straightforward one this week. Do you think the Fed will cut rates this year? And yet you folks have been battling it out back and forth. I will reveal the results in a second. But first, out to Uncle Mike we go. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are your thoughts? You think the Fed is sitting on its hands this year? I mean, you did just kind of mention that at the top of the show. And then what do you think our audience is lining up for?
I don't think the Fed wants to cut rates, but they're in a tough spot. It's like I would not want the job of being Federal Reserve Chair by any means. It's like you're paid to sweat. It's not like you're going to be wrong and you have to have insane stress no matter what. But typically what the Fed tends to do when it's not an obvious situation is they punt. So I don't think they're going to lower rates. I don't think they're going to raise rates either. And I think the audience agrees with me.
Punt. Interesting. Mr. Flowmaster, where do you fall? The Fed, are they cutting rates or not this year? And what do you think our audience is voting for?
I think they do. I think we do get one cut. I agree that it may not be super warranted, but I think they're going to kind of shrug off the energy spike and kind of be a little bit more focused on just the general economic conditions. So I think we get a cut. I think our audience thinks we get a cut.
Well, our audience is having a hard time making up its mind today. Right now, we are seeing the no's take it with 54.8% of the vote, 45.2% say yes, but we've been vacillating around this 50-50 level for pretty much all week out here. So you folks having a hard time making up your mind. Again, that is what makes a market. If you look at the Fed watch, it would seem to indicate no, but our audience always more insightful than any analytical tool or metric we can put up against you. Nichols in our chat says he likes the BTDR as a covered call. Yeah, I was just looking at it while you were typing there, Mr. Nichols, and yeah, they're fairly juicy. The 10 calls, you can sell those are probably 50 cents. That's $1.50 out of the money right now. I think you'd be pretty happy to get called away at that level. So yeah, there is some juice. I mean, this thing obviously has fallen out of bed, so you got to be okay with a little bit of downside in the stock. You could almost, I say almost, you could do a pretty tight collar on this one. Looks like you could do the 8-10 collar pretty close to even money. Might have to play with that a little bit. So you're pretty tight to the downside if you're worried about downside, and you got all that room to run to the upside. So yeah, I don't know, kind of an intriguing one. Again, not a name I really watch at all, but might be one to add to the docket for analysis. Maybe, who knows, maybe on a little bit of oddities coming up later this week. But now it's time for us to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, let's go around the block. Let's start with what's up with these markets. And man, Uncle Mike, I bought him a bunch of time to work out his buying finger, and it seems like he got a little lazy because we are continuing in the red direction. S&P off almost 1.5% right now. The Dow closing in on 1% to the downside. Nasdaq closing in on 2% to the downside. So that red getting extra spicy. VIX cash at a 27.65 as we're coming into the end of the show. So things not looking bueno. And once again, like clockwork, the flight to quality asset of gold taking it on the chin, off 4% today as well. So things are a little strange in this conflict, to put it mildly. Out to the Flowmaster we go. Mr. Flowmaster, what are you keeping an eye on in the market until your next international trip, and of course your next appearance next Thursday, where you annihilate the market once again, sir?
I will try tomorrow. Next Thursday, I'm gonna try to wake up on the other side of the bed and see if maybe we go up instead. I mean, I think the macro picture and what's going on with oil and this geopolitical situation, we see VIX kind of edging up back up towards 30. What's interesting though is looking at our little VIX decomposition tool, which shows you which kind of parts of the SPX skew are contributing to the change in the VIX. It really has been kind of priced in terms of a general, like kind of a shift up the curve, as well as a parallel shift, meaning that the market is basically saying it's going to be more volatile, but we don't quite see the much of a directional end to it. If anything, over the last week or so, there was kind of some calls. The calls were kind of holding their value, but like today, it's really all kind of priced in. Basically, the curve itself has shifted up about a point, and the other 1.5 is coming from the fact that we've slid down, percent and a half. So it's a little, it's a little choppy, a little bit ugly. I think maybe we're starting to see some fear. VIX at 30 though, makes all sorts of trades kind of very interesting. So there's the big difference between VIX at 15 and VIX at 30. So that's really it. The macro picture and the situation with the conflicts is going to be dominating my view.
And Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on till your next appearance on Monday?
I mean, of course, headline risk, watching silver to see if, and gold, just to see if they can, they continue to go down. Silver appears to might be making another run at its low for the year right now. So continuing to watch that. Watching bonds, the fact that we have stocks down and bonds down in the same day. At some stage, money is going to appear somewhere besides oil. So that, along with, the headline risk.
And keeping an eye on all those Bitcoin holdings, sir. You forgot about that. That music means we are done, at least with the old OB. If you want more in your lives, though, stay tuned. I'll be back with Miss Carly Garner on Twifo in a little bit. I have a feeling she'll have a thought or two to share about energy. She always does, even when not much is going on, let alone right now. So stay tuned for that. Should be a good one. But before we go, around the horn we go. Mr. Flowmaster, sir, where should folks go if they want more SIBO fun in their lives?
Just head over to SIBO.com. We've got lots of good stuff there. I'll tell you that the Mag 10 index options, which were listed, I believe, at the end of last year and have had a slow uptake in terms of activity. I actually got an email from Robinhood this morning that they were now available, which looks to me like it's actually resulting in some volume out there because we've got a few hundred contracts on the tape, and the average daily volume had been lower than that, excluding a couple crazy days that we had that were kind of interesting too. So I would check out this Mag 10 index, especially because we're seeing it. We're seeing kind of these high flyers really get hit hard, and it's an interesting product. I traded it a little bit today and yesterday, and SIBO.com/RMA is where we have our data and platforms, and you can request a trial and see what we've got.
There you go. Request a trial. It will make the Flowmaster so very happy. And Mr. Uncle Mike, where should folks go if they want to make you happy, sir?
Well, I'm happy already, but just keep listening to the option block. That makes me happy. But if you'd like some additional content, check out my YouTube channel. Type in St. Charles Wealth Management. We have a nice half-hour video coming out probably in the next few weeks, so we're working on it now. Check that out. And if you'd like to have a conversation with a financial advisor who looks for opportunities in times like this, go to stcharleswealth.com, book an appointment with me. Would love to have a conversation with any of our listeners.
There you go. Check them out, stcharleswealth.com. Back again in about 30 minutes for all of our pro friends. We're going to talk a whole bunch of fun on the futures options side. Then back again after the closing bell to break down this mad day in the options market. What's going to light up the tape? What's going to dominate our hot options report? Well, you got to tune in to find out. Then back again tomorrow to put a bow on this week with some sweet, sweet vol talk on volatility views. And spoiler alert, probably going to have another fun one out there again. A lot of vol to talk about this week. Then we're back after vol views to talk some wild trading. Maybe we'll talk ourselves into some fun in BitDR. Who knows? Let's find out. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go to have all of that fun on options oddities. Then we're back again next week, kicking it off with a little bit of a trivia challenge on Monday with the option block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by SIBO. SIBO's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.sibo.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of CBOE Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively CBOE. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the CBOE products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.